Okay, we're live for Tech Talks. And last week we talked about Panopto editing basics. And this week we're going to talk about something a little more advanced in Panopto, making quizzes that students can take and can go into the gradebook and can be fully automated through Panopto.
Yes. So I'll be kind of walking us through that today. We probably should start with kind of like, why do you want to do this? Because I think once you kind of know how to, the temptation to make everything into a Panopto quiz can be really great, especially when you're in kind of the camp of no students are watching my lecture recordings. It can be an easy thing to kind of fall into, which does help with that kind of stuff, right? We're putting a grade to an activity, and sometimes that can help motivate students and put it on their calendar and get it at the front of their brain. However, keep in mind that the kind of assessment that we're going to be talking about is more for formative assessment. It's going to be for very specific things. And it's not going to fix, say, a 60-minute lecture.
Right.
That's something that we see pretty often. People, when they get to the online environment, kind of try to teach like they're on ground, which isn't to say that's a bad thing, but there are some shifts that can be really helpful, like breaking up a lecture recording into small topics that are a little bit more bite-sized, because we're online. We get the benefit of flexibility. We get the benefit of moving things around, cutting things and kind of shifting it to get a really nice flow to a course. It becomes a lot easier to do that online, which I love.
Well, because there's a lot of research about attention span and video, and consistently the research shows, I think it's like after 8 or 9 minutes is when, on average, people's attention span and recall of heavy videos plummets.
Oh yeah, that's actually really beautiful segue. David Souza in, I think it was, 2009, published a paper called The Privacy, or I believe it's an excerpt from his text. I have to find the actual citation, but every 8 to 10 minutes in a kind of like in a singular topic or something that's novel to the student that you're trying to teach them. After about 8 to 10 minutes, the students go from essentially having what we would say effective retention to a period of time known as downtime. It's not like students aren't learning after that period, but their brain is starting to try to process everything that they've just been hit with. So Tom just put in the chat, so questions every 8 to 10 minutes, another amazing segue. Exactly. When we start entering these points where a student might start to say their brain might start to dissociate, for lack of a better term, but their brain starts to try to process. Oh, we hit them with an activity. You do that on ground all the time. You might stop in a lecture to kind of poll the class or do polls or something very interactive. Maybe you might break them up in groups. That sometimes happens. Exactly. That happens sometimes, hopefully, really naturally. And hopefully that's something you're doing. Once we get online, Tom, I see your face. Once we get online, we have this great opportunity to do something hopefully pretty similar.
I've supported 750 seat lectures before, so I've seen the like start at this time, go straight through for an hour or 90 minutes or whatever, like on a pretty regular basis. That doesn't happen so much in community colleges, though.
Yeah, we have the privilege of not having to do that.
Luckily, yeah. Well said. I think that was very political. But yeah, we have this great opportunity to kind of embed these right when students are starting to, maybe their brain's starting to slow down. Maybe they're starting to kind of think about, what they got to buy at the grocery store later today. Okay, let's bring them back in. Let's do some sort of formative assessment. That's what Panopto quizzes work really well with. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to share my screen and we'll kind of jump into exactly how you do this. So because we talked about kind of editing in Panopto last time, thank you, Cassie. I think that was an awesome setup, because this is going to assume that you've already kind of recorded it. You have something that you're like, okay, I want to kind of assign this lecture or this recording or this video, whatever it is, to my students, and I want to essentially gauge their understanding as the video progresses. So that's where we're going to try to embed little quizzes in there, and then that's going to wrap around and integrate with the gradebook. So Canvas will go, okay, Nick's taking that quiz. he got 3 out of the 6 questions right, I'll give him 50%. That's kind of the interaction I'm trying to create. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to jump in. I'm going to make this just slightly bigger and let me zoom in because glasses. So I'm going to jump into this just blank assignment. That's all I've done here is I put an assignment in a module and it's unpublished. All I'm going to do here is I'm going to click edit, and now I've got some options. So right here is just that standard blurb that you can put the prompt in, some little bits of context for maybe the lecture recording. This is where we can kind of explain the interaction we want students to do, because it's still an assignment, right? Just showing them a lecture recording and going, have at it. It's not quite the interaction we want. We want them to know what to be getting out of it, know that there are quizzes embedded within them, kind of the goal for the day. So that's where we kind of put some context.
Well,
Right?
and that's good transparency because you want the student to know that they're gonna have to pay attention, they're gonna have to listen. So if they are not currently in an environment that allows them to do that, then they might have to figure something out, put on some headphones, go to a quiet room. You can't just put it on and tune out, basically.
Absolutely. So once I feel good with the context I give them, something that's very transparent, kind of sets them up, sets the stage for them to also be able to schedule the time to take this lecture and kind of go through it. I can assign points. Usually I do that at the end, and I'll explain that once we get there. But I'm going to go down, I'm going to keep everything the same. Maybe you've got specific assignment groups this is going to get thrown into. But this is the important part. I want to get down to submission type. So this is what's actually going to connect Panopto to this assignment. This is the really important step that kind of ties everything together. So when I'm in Canvas in my assignment submission type, I click the little drop down, and you might find stuff that you've already used before. Something that's online will give you kind of the standard submission types, documents, that kind of thing, Dropbox kind of style stuff. You've got your on paper, if it's kind of a hybrid course or they're turning something into you directly. Then we get to external tool. That's the one we're going to select because Panopto is technically an external tool to Canvas. Canvas and Panopto are friends, but they don't live in the same house. So I'm going to click external tool. And once I'm in here, this is where things get a little bit convoluted, but just stick with it. We'll get through. What I'm going to do is I'm going to click this find, and that is going to take me to this configure external tool, I guess, pop-up box. The thing that I always do to start is I drag this corner out. That is quality of life level kind of tip there. Because you'll notice it was kind of hiding some of these things. Getting the thumbs up for Tom, yeah. And I can't tell you how many times I've worked with somebody, and I've done this too. Oh my gosh, I can't find the thing. Well, because the name's cut off. Okay, so don't fall for that. So we'll scroll through, and we're looking for Panopto. And luckily, there's nothing else that has a very similar name, so I'm just looking for P's. So let's go down, 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 Panopto. So I'm going to click, and it's going to open another pop-up window. Stick with it. Trust the process.
And it's also one that's a little shrunken.
So I'm going to make this, again, big enough to freaking read. So now that this is like this, I can read everything. How would you like to grade this assignment? The important thing is we're going to grade on quiz results. So that's going to be the piece that connects the quiz to this. And so we'll get to editing and creating the quiz after I've selected the video, because I want you to see kind of this background stuff, because I don't know how many points it's going to be yet. Okay. But what I've got here also is grade on percent viewed. I would struggle to say that that's the option that you'd want. There's no way to know what the interaction's like.
If I were a student and I was presented with that, I would probably hit play on a 60-minute video, and then I would walk away, make a sandwich, and come back and get points.
Yeah,
there's not really any incentive for engagement with that.
And you don't really get anything from it, right? There's no good data. I don't know how the students did. I don't know what they know.
Yeah.
I want grade on quiz results. So I'm going to click continue, and this is the lecture recording I'm going to use. I select it. I've got some embed options. You can keep those pretty much just as they are. I'm going to click insert. And now this is where it gets weird. Don't touch anything. Just click select or if you're like me, I like to have it on the same page as my context so the students don't get pushed out to another page. So do click something, don't just make sure it's not selected, load a new tab that sometimes comes over. Then I'm going to click select. And then sometimes it changes my assignment name,
Oh, it changed it to the name of the video.
Mhm.
I didn't know it did that.
which I always forget, which is why I'm now changing this. Let's go lecture recording. Maybe I'll just do lecture recording quiz for now, but something transparent, let them know what they're doing. I'm gonna keep the points there for now. I'm just gonna click save. I just want to get this all set up so you can kind of see. So now I've connected the lecture recording, but you might go, well, Nick, I didn't see you make a quiz yet. You're right. I can connect it all before I actually go through that process. Right now, this would not function. What I now need to do is make my quiz, but I like having it all set up. That's just me. You can do it the other way around if that just makes more sense to you.
So
If you're already in there
You
editing.
could do the quiz questions at Panopto first and then make the
Yeah.
assignment.
Order doesn't matter in this case,
Good job.
but I do it this way because now that I've got it selected and this is where things might be important. I might not remember where I had this recording. I might not know all of that. I might need to check permissions to make sure the students can access. This luckily was in the Panopto folder for my course, but if it's from a past course, you might need to move it. I like to just make sure I've got things tied together and I know how that's going. So if you have those kind of questions, just let me know at the end. But now I'm just going to open it in Panopto. And now that I'm in here, this is where I'm going to jump into my editor over in the top right. Now that I'm in my editor, which should look familiar from last week, we've got our timeline here. This is a short video just for the ease of our navigation. But as you can imagine, you've got hopefully like 20 minutes or less to kind of work through. You can kind of click around in the timeline, or I call it my Cassie captions. I jump over to my captions. In this case, there's no,
There's no
I
audio,
forgot
so
that I don't have audio, but you would kind of go through and find the points where I said, oh, this, or I had a natural pause. Again, you're looking for those points where naturally you're shifting anyways. So, oh, awesome. Let's put that in there.
Or you could say something like, and now I'd like for you to take this quiz.
Exactly. You could key it
build
up.
it into your video
Ooh.
recording.
Yeah, and you could put it in your PowerPoint lecture so it
Oh,
clues
sure.
to
Oh, yeah.
you so you remember, because I would forget. That's beautiful. I love that. So you can kind of, you can shape it how you generally do. But once I've kind of know where I'm going, kind of know what I'm going to be asking, let's say that's the 1 minute mark. Maybe I've got an intro quiz to kind of gauge or something. I'm going to go to my quizzes. You'll notice there aren't any. That's a good sign. I shouldn't expect them to be there to start. I click add a quiz, and what it's going to do is it's going to add a quiz right at the playhead. So wherever you have selected here along the line or your timeline, that's where the quiz is going to be embedded. And what it's going to do is it's going to cut the students to the quiz in the feed. So students watching recording, watching.
It stops playing.
Which is why I think Cassie's idea of tee it up can help avoid that like whiplash. Stops, this pops up, they answer the questions, they submit, they can retake it, which I think is a really good option with this. Retake it as many times as they need to kind of practice. Maybe they go back to the previous and then they watch it again just to make sure they got everything. Then they move on, and you can do this as many times as you want during, again, the recording. Now, to Tom's point earlier, probably about every 8 to 10 minutes is kind of where I would say things might average out, maybe a little bit earlier, maybe a little bit later, depending on the content type and what you're talking about. But that might be a good kind of rule to follow unless you've got very specific points. Like I've seen instructors do like test prep kind of stuff where they've got just a line of recordings, or I should say they've got a recording of them working through kind of a slide deck that is, test questions or case studies. And then they ask the students questions at certain points, and then they explain the questions after, which I really like. Because not only is the student getting that kind of initial test, kind of working through it, and then you kind of engage afterwards how they're doing, they then have the full explanation of correct answers, which is just a really cool way to do it. But right now I'm creating this quiz. I've got, and this is where things also get a little bit interesting. You can add as many of these, like I said, always rename them as you go. So maybe this is, you know, maybe you can name it by topic. Or maybe it's, I don't know, just the number. The number one, just so you kind of know where it is and what it's talking about. That will help you later on, especially if you build these in a kind of a repository of them. So now I've got some options over here of either multiple choice, true, false, multiple select, fill in the blank. Now these are all going to be, again, kind of more MCQ style. They're not going to, it's not going to allow for like essay questions or things like that. But the point of this is, again, to be a formative assessment, something that the students can use to gauge their understanding as they go through, but also to guide them through. Oh, Nick's asking me about this. That's probably important. Maybe it has something to do with my objectives for the week. Really great ways that you can kind of assess that. But let's say we want a true and false. What color is the sky in the video?
It's not a true or false question.
Oh, shit. My mind was going,
The sky is.
there we go. My mind was like 3 miles away from me. The sky is blue. Maybe it's a sunset. So you can, once you've selected your answer using these little radial selectors, you've got correct answer explanation. It's optional. Again, I love it when you can actually talk through the correct answers and the incorrect answers or the distractors, kind of work through that. Sometimes that's not always possible.
If you already made the video as a lecture recording in the
Mhm.
classroom or something, then
Yeah, you might
it
not
is
have
what it
that.
is.
And that's completely fine. So that would be a place where you could put that so a student would see it. And then you'll notice up here in the top right, we have 1 of 1. As I add questions, that number will increase and I can go backwards or forwards. Now note, this won't allow me to go backwards or forwards until I kind of like
Make a second
finish the question. So in this case, let's do what color is the sky? Got blue, got orange. I don't know what's another color. My brain's toasted.
Pink, yeah.
Oh, there we go. That's the answer. Great. So once I've done that, I can keep adding questions. Again, these will all show at the same timestamp. When I click done, I'll see some options for this quiz. I can also adjust the position. I can also do that over here using these 3 dots. I can kind of change where it lands. I can allow viewers to retake the quiz, which I would strongly advise because the benefit of this is the students have the primary resource right there. They can go back and reference you. They can rewind and go, okay, what did Nick say? Oh, that was it. You know, you can really track and kind of change the flow of your lectures or whatever video you're showing. I really like that you can allow those retakes. And plus, that means they're getting so much mileage out of one recording.
Yeah,
It's awesome.
So think about this in terms of engagement, recall, and self-assessment rather than
Beautiful.
like an exam that's worth a lot of points and is a one and
Absolutely.
done kind of deal.
Absolutely. And so depending on how you want it to look, you can allow review of correct answers. I mean, if you're kind of wanting them to kind of look back in the recording to see where those answers are, you might deselect this. It just depends on how much time and effort you put into those correct answer explanations. I always like to show the grade after taking the quiz. I like that transparency. It's again, I don't think that this works as well when it's like an exam or a pop quiz. Like it just doesn't feel like it gets the most mileage. And then I usually block advancing the video until answering the quiz. I want them to make an answer before they kind of move on. That's just me personally. Sometimes you might allow them to go all the way through and then maybe when they watch it again, they could answer it. Again, it just depends on the flow. The only caveat is you want to avoid them going all the way through and not realizing they were supposed to take the quiz, which sometimes you might see that here. Make sure you put context on the actual assignment to ensure that they know, hey, there's a graded quiz to check your understanding in this lecture recording. Please complete all the questions. Let me know if you have any questions, you know, that kind of stuff. So when I'm done, I can click finish. And then if I play this back, this is what happens. It pops up. Now, because I'm in the editor, it's going to show me the editor view, and I can see all the different quizzes over here. I click done, finish, it'll keep playing. And maybe I can add another quiz if I want. You can kind of see how that goes. If I ever need to remove one, I can click delete over here on the right. And then if I click into it and click done, there's my editing options as well. So once I feel good about this, I'm going to go up to the top and click apply. Always click apply. Changes applied to the video. I can close the editor now. I'm completely fine with that. And now I'm going to take one moment to check the chat. Wherever you want reinforcements, great recall days when you had to download a CSV file first to manually transfer grades into Canvas.
Ooh, yeah,
Jennifer has
that.
been in the trenches. Yes, that's intense. Tom Gibbons, it's kind of a great way to interleave study and practice too. I'm imagining this with a math demo. Awesome, awesome, awesome. Faculty copy paste courses in the future. One would want to store their Panopto videos in the default folder, right? Not specific to the current course, just to prevent links from being broken. Tom's saying not necessarily. There's, I believe in the past, our Panopto instance has been like that, but depending on how you copy the course over, importing it into the next term, it may update permissions. I always go to Tom for those kind of questions for sure.
That's also probably
So-
more time that we have to,
Oh,
I
yeah.
don't know. We could talk about it a
Yeah,
little bit, but we're running out of time.
So I'm just going to mention, if you're doing assignment quizzes like this, you want those quizzes to live in the folder for the course where you're creating the quiz. And that way the permissions copy from one term to the next, one copy to the next. If you put them outside, you do have to actually relink your assignments to that video each time, because the target URL and permissions change based on the course. It's kind of a drag.
That's good to know.
Perfect. Okay, thank you, Tom. So yeah, that's going to be a very important caveat. And luckily mine is already in the course that I'm working in. So if you do use a default, some sort of folder outside of the actual course shell, that just, you kind of keep those links, or they're permanent links really. You would want to bring whatever it is specific to the course that's being assessed in the course into the course. And if you've got multiple courses using it, you might need to make copies and copy them over, but that's a process we can help you with, kind of figuring that out if that becomes an issue. So once all this is done, I've done everything I need to do. I click out of here, because again, I don't need to take the quiz. I want my students to. I'm just going to refresh this page just to be safe. There's my little insert transparency, quiz to complete. I'm going to make sure this is published, and then I'm going to have my test student do it. We're going to see how it looks.
You also haven't assigned any points to the
Oh,
assignment
God,
yet.
thank you. That's always the last thing I do and always the first thing I forget. So, that's the last interesting thing about the quiz. So you'll remember I made 2 questions. So Panopto goes, okay, this quiz is worth 2 points. What happens if I put in 10 points here? Well, that might be how your grading scheme runs. You might have, maybe you're not in weighted groups and you just do a straight point grade book. All sorts of things might be going on here. But the important thing is, again, Panopto, Canvas, really good friends. They always hash things out. So in Panopto, we got 2 points. Canvas, we got 10 points. Canvas goes, Panopto, each of those questions is now worth 5 points because it needs a total 10 at the end of the day.
Okay.
So whatever your points in Canvas are, Panopto will play nice and will kind of rearrange values to match.
Will it
What if-
always? Go
It's
ahead.
like, what if you put 9?
It'll-
4.5?
Decimals, yeah.
And I assume, will it make every question worth the same number of points?
Yes.
So you
All-
can't have like one question worth.
Oh, yeah, that's a good point. Yes, they would all be equal.
Okay, good to know.
It would just kind of lump them all together. Okay. So in this case, let's say that I want each question to be worth 1 point. So I'm gonna make it 2. Thank you for that catch, Caleb. I would have completely just forgot about it. And then you can assign everything as normal. We've got assign access.
Yeah.
For these kind of questions, I usually allow, again, unlimited attempts because it's got that benefit of being able to work through it multiple times, get something new out of each time.
We're not trying to catch them, we're trying to get them to pay attention.
Great language. I love that. So then I'm going to click save. I'm going to jump into my student. Let's give him a grade. View as student. Wah, wah, wah. This is why I chose a super short video with no audio, so that I get to one.
Good question.
There we go. Sky is blue. False. I watched the video. It was a sunset.
A pink sunset.
Finish.
2 out of
Awesome.
2.
Retake it if I want. Review would show me those correct answer kind of elements in there. I could kind of
Auto
say,
feedback kind of thing, yeah, Bill, okay.
click continue. And once I finish the recording, I can be assured that it fully logs. Sometimes that's where things kind of get a little weird. I've seen it like that in the past, where if a student doesn't complete the recording or get close enough to a full percentage the recording watched, might not fully submit.
So that's probably a good reason to have, if it's a longer video, have another question close to the end.
Yeah, some sort of final bookend to it. And then I'm gonna just jump in the chat just to double check.
Talk about
There's
master
so
courses.
Jennifer and Tom are working through on master courses.
Yeah.
Perfect. So now let's do the last thing, because I know we're low on time and I always talk over because I just love this stuff so much. So I'm in the test student. I'm gonna go by module because I need to see my first thing that's due. Come on, you can do it. There we go. So there, this is what the student sees, and then they would be able to, again, retake it as I needed to. And when you're in speed grader, well, you don't need to, because it auto grades, which is really beneficial for kind of saving some time if you want people to watch things, get a quick view of who's done it. Good to go. So that, in a nutshell, I know we've talked through a bunch of different things with it. That's how you create essentially graded Panopto quizzes. A super cool feature. Great power comes great responsibility, but I think they're super effective for a wide variety of use cases. So we'll stick on for a little bit longer if anybody's got any extra questions, wants to kind of hash anything out while we're here. Otherwise, we'll see you on the next one, which
Not next week, because
That's
next
right.
week is President's Day on Monday, so we don't have one on Tuesday. The following Tuesday, we'll start talking about rubric design.
oh yeah, we're getting in the weeds. I love it.
All right, I'm gonna stop the YouTube stream. Thanks, everybody, for coming.
Yeah, it's good to see you all. Thanks for making our Tuesdays interesting.